Hello everyone, this is Nelson Dellis, four-time USA Memory Champ, and we are interviewing Alex Mullen, the new World Memory Champion. Thank you for joining me on this call for this interview. How you doing?
I'm great, how are you?
I'm very good. Where are you right now?
I am in Jackson, Mississippi at my house, just right off the med school campus.
All right. So you're starting school back up for the semester after your winter break?
Yeah, we had, I started this past Monday, two days ago, yeah.
Nice. So for those of you who don't know, Alex, he just became the first American to win the World Championship in memory in China, which was last December, a few weeks ago. And he won it in some pretty impressive fashion, scoring some crazy scores, setting some world records. And we just wanted to catch up with him today and kind of see how that was, the experience, and maybe learn a little more about your techniques and things like that. So first, I guess, congratulations.
Thanks.
I'd love to know. I know we talked a lot while I was there, but for people who don't know, what was it like going into that? I mean, I know you knew you were at a level where you could win based on the scores you had practiced, right? But did you ever think that you would end up winning?
No, not really. I mean, so right before I left, I was sort of just worried about finishing my exams.
Wow.
Because I had to cram 4 exams into 2 days, literally right before I left, and it was just a huge nightmare. So Once that was over, I was just totally relieved. I wasn't even worried about the competition at all.
Wow.
But yeah, I mean, so I, like you said, I knew what my personal bests were. I knew that if I, was able to hit, something close to those in every event, that I would have a chance.
Yeah.
But I didn't think that I would do that, for obvious reasons. Just because, it's not like every competition that I've had has been great. I've had plenty of events where I've just totally screwed up.
It's competition. You got to expect some.
Right. So I was expecting, at least a 20% reduction probably in most events, maybe 1 or 2 just totally screwed up events.
Yeah.
So just, thinking about that, I was sort of just hoping for maybe best case scenario, I could get kind of squeak into third.
Yeah.
And maybe get some extra prize money. So in my mind, that was kind of the best case scenario for me.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I mean, you ended up having, I think, a pretty much, I know you could have done better in terms of what you probably scored in practice, but in terms of competition level, you were on everything, pretty much.
I did I did about as good as I could have hoped to do in pretty much every event.
Yeah.
So in 3 of the events, I actually broke my personal best, even that I've ever done in training.
That's crazy.
Which is crazy. I never would expect to do that. So those were binary, binary was just a hair. Abstract, so I did a 505.
Right.
Believe it or not, my best before that was 455. So I increased to 50 points, which is,
that's crazy.
There's no way I could have even hoped for that. And then words. Words, my best before that was actually 220.
Okay.
And I guess that's less cool just because the memo camp words are generally much harder.
Yeah, the words in the championship were a lot normal.
Right.
Normal.
So, and then I guess there were 2 events. So, names, I didn't do quite as well as I probably could have, but that was obviously affected by the whole 15-minute gap between memorization and recall. Yeah. And then I was sort of hoping to do better in speed numbers, so I ended up with 400.
Yeah.
My best in that is 537, and I was kind of hoping I could get something around 500, but so that was a little weaker. But at that point I was I had already done better than I expected in so many events that I didn't care.
Well, let's talk about for a second your records there. Your records there. What did you do? So you did the hour numbers and it was 3,029.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, are you happy with that? I mean, you're the first person to ever break the 3,000 digit barrier, which is insane.
I was thrilled with that. I mean, my best in practice was around 3,200.
Yeah.
But I didn't read as many as I kind of had hoped to, or that I did in that run.
Yeah.
I didn't encode as many, so honestly, while I was in the recall, I like tried to calculate out. I was like, okay, I'm not sure about this one and this one and this one, and I calculated it out, and I was like, okay, worst case scenario, I got like a 2,600.
Okay.
Or something, or like 26 or 2,700.
Like if you got everything you thought maybe was wrong,
yeah,
then that's okay.
Yeah. So I was sort of based on that, I was kind of expecting to get like a 28 or 2,900. So when it got above 3,000, I was thrilled about that.
That's awesome. Yeah.
When they announced the first score at third, and it was like 28 something, and I was like, oh shit.
Yeah. You thought you were maybe fourth or something. Yeah.
Sorry, can I say that?
No, that's fine.
But then I knew also that at my last, I had put 9 just at the very last line, and so when he said 3,029, I was like, oh, yes.
Yeah, that has to be it. Yeah. That's amazing.
That was a great feeling, and
yeah. Just to give people some perspective, I remember when I started this memory stuff, I listened to a Dominic O'Brien audio tape, and it was all about like you could memorize 1,000 digits in an hour. And I remember back then I was like, holy shit, 1,000 digits. And even learning how to do that, and eventually being able to do more than that, just a little bit more in competition, and that gives you the grandmaster status if you can do that, amongst other things. That was like a pretty basic benchmark to being a good memory competitor. But then 2,000 came along, and that was kind of like, if you can do 2,000, you're pretty solid. But I mean, now you fucked it up for all of us. It's like to be relevant, you gotta hit the 3,000. That's amazing.
Thanks. Yeah, I definitely going in when I first started out, I would never have thought that I could do 2,000.
Right.
And I mean, it's just kind of it's taken a while, but yeah.
So we've talked about this a lot, but I'm sure a lot of people are very interested how you do that. So if you don't mind telling me again, but imagine you're telling everybody else.
Sure.
What system do you use, and for hour numbers, what was your strategy?
Right. For my number system, it's pretty straightforward. It's just a 1,000 image 3-digit system, 1 image for every 3 digits.
Yeah.
And I just did it based on the major system.
Okay.
So every there are like a few exceptions, but pretty much all of it is just like straight, kind of by the book major system.
Yeah. So you create words out of the 3 digits. They're all consonants, and you just fill in vowels.
Yeah, exactly. So like 357 is just like milk because it's MLK, that kind of thing. Okay. My system is about a third people and 2/3 objects.
Okay.
Something like that. And then what I do is I just put 2 of those images on each location. So 6 digits per location, and just kind of use the regular memory palace strategy like every other event. And then for the hour numbers, I did the hour numbers like 3 times before the competition, and I didn't, but I had been practicing the 15-minute event a lot,
right?
And I like that event a lot, and so what I tried to do, just like kind of my idea, I really didn't know what many people did because it's kind of hard to find unless you ask them.
Right.
People aren't really giving out their hour strategies for different things.
Yeah, like how you. What he's talking about is the time you spend memorizing versus reviewing, and how far you go before you review, and how often you review, because that's important, right? For an hour, you need to review at some point, even multiple times.
So for basically all the events, that I had done previously, it was pretty easy. I could just say, okay, I'm just going to memorize it and review it once, or maybe review it twice, and that would be it.
Yeah.
Just because they were all shorter events.
Right.
And then when this came up, I sort of thought to myself, okay, I like the 15-minute event. Maybe I can sort of just try to do a couple different 15-minute events in a row.
Okay.
And so that's exactly what I did. What I basically do is when I do the 15-minute event, I just read it once, and then I review it once, and that's it. And so I would I basically do 3 15-minute chunks.
Yeah.
I read, and it's sort of that, but it's more like I take them in basically each page.
Yeah.
So each page is I think 1,000. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I just do the one page and then review that same page.
Okay.
And so that usually takes me a little less than 15 minutes, but it's something, it's kind of on that same time scale. And then, so I'll do that page, review it, do the second page, review that, do the third page, review that. And then I'll review all of them again. And then that kind of puts me somewhere after the 50-minute mark.
Yeah.
And then from that point, I just go to the fourth page and I just read as many as I can, review that once.
Got it.
And then that's it. Yeah.
Okay.
So I sort of try to do 3 15-minute events and then review all of them again, and then a little bit at the end.
Whatever change you have after that.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool.
Yeah. So that, honestly, I don't know if that's the best way to do it. That's kind of was my idea.
It is the best way to do it. Like that's what that world record means. Right now it's the best way to do it. Well, for you, but yeah.
Right, but yeah. So that's what I do.
Okay. And then I wanted to ask you this, just personally. I remember during recall, right? After the 1 hour, you get 2 hours to write down the numbers, and most people flip over the papers and they're scribbling down to get the numbers out of their head on paper. But I remember looking at you, and you were just like this, like a friggin' vampire for like 15, 20 minutes, maybe even more. I guess you were just like going over them before you wrote them down.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah. So I do that in every event except for words.
Okay.
And there's not really that much rhyme or reason to the words thing. I don't know. I just never have.
Okay.
Maybe it's sort of a spell, just to get the spelling nuances or something like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, so for every event, except for names and dates, obviously, just because they don't have the locations to review. All the other ones, I try to review it once in my head before I go back, because I just did that once, and I was like, oh, this kind of works, and then I literally just kept doing that.
Yeah.
Since then. Yeah. So,
but it's true. Yeah. I mean, once you remove the paper and you are able to do the whole thing in your head once using the memory palace, it's pretty much there for as long as you need to write it. I don't think
there's I very rarely am able to go through it all, and then when I'm writing it down, I'll forget something.
Right. Exactly.
Once you have it, yeah. And then so my logic was basically just, okay, I can definitely review it in my head faster than I can write it down.
That's true.
Maybe for the sort of trouble spots, I'll be able to kind of get to it in my head just in time before I would have forgotten it if I had written it down. You know what I mean?
That's actually very interesting, because I'll find when I write stuff down, you're focused on that particular point, and then you get to a certain point and you're like, oh, shoot. You have to think about it. But if you do that, right, like you said, it's faster, and once you go through it, it's pretty much cemented at that point. Interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, so I mean, that's just kind of a habit now. Obviously there's kind of trade-offs, because you could spend, maybe some extra time at the end to just, kind of review your system and maybe pick up some gaps that way.
Yeah.
But, I've been doing this, and that's what I like to do. So.
Yeah, that's a big part of it, right? Also is finding what you're comfortable with and just kind of doing that on repeat.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, so what else? I mean, there was another record you broke, but then that was also broken too, with the cards, right?
Yeah,
the hour cards.
Yeah.
So the record has been 28 decks for many, many years by Ben Pridmore, and then this year, you and Ola?
Yeah, three of us broke it. Yeah. Ola and I both did 28 and 4 cards, and then Shibin Bin did 31.
31,
which just blows my mind, because I know he uses a 1-card system, so one card for every image. I mean, I think Ola told me that, so I'm pretty sure that's right.
Yeah.
And yeah, and then, like honestly, I think because he can do that, like that's honestly the most impressive record I think that was broken in my mind, because that's, you know, just one image for every card is just,
yeah, that's a lot of information.
That's crazy. I mean 31 yeah, anyway.
So how many decks did you try?
I
It was
looked
30
through
something, right?
just 30 and 4 cards.
Okay.
And so I guess I you know,
Just 2 decks.
I guess I just 2 decks, yeah.
Got it. Okay. And then I know a lot of people, I mean, the speed cards that you did, the performance there was awesome. I mean, you ended up...
Thanks.
You nailed them both. The first time, what did you do, 23 or 24?
Yeah, it was
24 seconds?
24:09.
And change?
Yeah.
Perfect. I also watched you during the recall, and you were done before I even put mine together, and I knew mine very well.
Yeah, I felt, yeah, I mean, that definitely doesn't always happen. I felt really lucky because both times I went through it in my head, and I think I either had 0 blanks or 1 blank.
Okay.
1 missing image, and that's like, you know, obviously best case scenario. Usually it's,
you can figure it out.
Usually it's at least 2 or 3, and then you have to kind of play with the cards.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was able to just kind of finish them in like 2.5 minutes, and I was just like, yes.
Yeah.
Because it was just.
There's nothing better when you know that you've got it, you know?
Yeah.
And then the second time, so you have to get even faster to make sure that you won the whole thing, and that you did in 21 seconds and what?
21.5, just like 21.50.
That's right. And that felt like the same thing, right? Like you knew it, and you put it together really smooth.
Yeah. Like I said, that does not always happen for me, but yeah, it worked out.
That was amazing. So what's your strategy? I know this. I've asked you to death about it, but
yeah,
your system is really interesting. I know you share kind of a similar strategy to Lance Shearhart, another American. But why don't you tell us what it is?
Sure, I'll see if I can explain it better this time.
It's hard to explain, but
it's sort of complicated. I don't know if you can put like Lance basically wrote this kind of long description of it on artofmemory.com.
Yeah.
I don't know if you can put like a link.
Yeah, I'll put the link below.
Description or something.
Sure.
But so he explains it really well, better than I'm going to explain it right now. But the gist of it is, it's a 2-card system. But it's half the size of like a normal full 2700 image system. So like Ben's system, for instance, is 2700 images, 2704 images.
Yeah.
Every pair has a unique image. And mine is only 1356 images, so just half that.
Yeah.
And so the thing is, 2 different card pairs can have the same image.
Got it.
And then so the way I distinguish, how do I know whether it was this pair or this pair if I see that image? I use the locations, and so it's sort of split into 2 blocks. So one block is all suit combinations that are black first, so like spade, spade. If the pair is club, diamond, that's black first, etc. And the other side is all the red first version. So for instance, like spade, heart over here would be the same image as the same numbers with heart, spade.
Heart, spades. Okay.
So it's a little more complicated, but that's the basic idea. And then so the way I distinguish between them is on the location. If it's black first, if it's the black first version, I stay on that location and I continue to link images there.
Yeah, you just keep stacking them, right?
Right. I can give an example. That's probably the best way to do it.
Sure.
And then if it's the red first version, I make that the last image of that location, and I stop and I move to the next one.
Got it.
So if I get a black first, I'll put the image there. Another black first, put the image there. A red first, I put the image there. Stop, move to the second location. Okay. If it's a red first, that's the only image there.
Stay
and then I move
one alone. Okay.
Right.
So
so it's kind of
the images are variable in the location. Sometimes you may have one.
Exactly.
Sometimes
I have
you may
one.
have
Usually it's just 1 or 2. Sometimes it's 3. Sometimes it's 4. In our cards event, this is actually kind of unusual. I had maybe like 4 or 5 that were just like really long chains, like 6 images.
Wow.
And so what I usually do for cases like that is I just I'll just stop.
Yeah.
Like if I feel like it's getting to be too many, I just stop and move to the next one, even though it was still black first.
Yeah.
And I just kind of make a mental note
Right.
that I made that change. And then so I think that happened to me in the hour cards event. That happened to me 4 or 5 times, which is a lot. But I think luckily with enough reviews, I was able to.
You remember the mental note, yeah.
Remember it, yeah.
So with that, in that case, do you? I mean, you said you felt like it was getting too long, but do you have like a cutoff? Like, is it 3 images, 4 images, where you'll never go longer?
It's just kind of a feeling.
So sometimes you may feel up to doing like 5 in a row if that happens.
Yeah, I can. Yeah. So sometimes 5, sometimes 4, sometimes 6. It just depends on how it's feeling.
If that happens,
actually.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh yeah. Well, I was just going to say actually. So this problem is it happens more often in the hour events, but it worries me a lot more in the speed card events.
I was going to ask. Yeah.
If I'm going very fast and suddenly I have like 6 images, I'm just like that. That's not good because especially because. I'm not able to really tell what the order is inside the location. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Just like with numbers, you can make swapping changes.
Right.
Generally, it's not as big a deal for like things that are 3 or 4 because it kind of becomes a story and you can get the directionality of it. But yeah, for speed cards, especially if you're trying to go really fast, sometimes that story is kind of
jumbled.
Not very good. Yeah.
Got it.
So I was really just kind of like, basically going into the speed cards, I had 2 fears, and 2 things that I was really just trying to like focus on. Like I was just saying it to myself, like right as I started. So one of them was if I get too many ones, I'm just going to go to the next one because it's really easy to remember it if it's just one deck, right? You just do it once, so you remember it.
Yeah.
As long as there aren't, I mean, that rarely happens. I'm kind of making the system sound worse than it is. But on the second speed card trial, on like the 5th or 6th location, I had 4 that were all black, and I was like, I basically just like freaked out, and I was like, ah, fuck. And then so I just went to the next one, even though it was only 4, which isn't really that many, but I just moved to the next one.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's just kind of an example of that.
Yeah.
I can quickly
show me an
go
example.
through an example.
Yeah, let's do it.
Sure. Right. So let's make this angle here. Okay. So I would just start on the first location. So this for me. So it's red first, right? So this is like one of those like big wind,
like a turbine,
windmill things, like kind of those like sleek ones that you see like in the like fields that are just like giant.
Right. For the energy, whatever. Yeah.
Right. So I would take that. I would put that on the first location. Say it's like a little plant there. I just see it like spinning there.
So and that's done, right? Because it's a red one first.
That's done. Yeah. So it's red first. So that's done. This next one is Andy Dwyer from Parks and Recreation TV show.
Okay.
So yeah, it's like the camera.
So we place him there.
So I just place him there. It's also red first. So he might be just like staring into the camera or something like that.
Yeah.
So a lot of red first. Obviously, this one is a love potion. So I would just go to the next location, put the love potion there, and these are all red. So it would all be like one. Here's one. This is a stage, and then so the next one would be a movie camera. And so I would just have the stage there, and maybe like just see the movie camera coming down, like filming the stage.
Yeah. Okay.
And that would be it for that locus. Move to the next one, etc.
Yeah. That's cool.
It sounds like pretty complicated, and when I first started it, I sort of wasn't comfortable with it, and I was like, this isn't gonna work.
Oh really? Okay.
But it just it just gets easier with practice, and now I'm pretty it feels very natural.
Yeah.
Main reason I sort of forced myself to do it was because I knew that. Well, I kind of knew that I wanted to pick a 2-card system, and I was like, okay, if I can get this to work, it'll be much easier. Because I didn't want to have too many images outside of my number system. Because if you use 2700, that's like 1700 images that's just for cards.
Right. You gotta be reviewing them, staying on top of them. It's hard to be fast at them. Which
I didn't like, and then I knew that. So this system is, I definitely stole it from sort of 2 people Johannes Mallow is kind of the first person who
That's
sort
right.
of
Yeah.
I guess pioneered that strategy of jumping the locations if it's red first or black first.
Yeah.
Um, so I stole that from him, and I knew that I asked him what his best times were, and I knew what some of them were from competition, and so I was like, okay, clearly he's fast at this.
Right.
So the potential for getting fast is there, and so that was what pushed me over the edge to finally actually doing it. And then the other kind of stealing part is just from Lance. Like I said, he wrote that big article. I just read that article, and that's how I did it. And so he came up. It's sort of based. It's mainly based on the major system, but he has all these kind of phonetic nuances for like the face cards and things.
Yeah.
And so I took most of those from him.
Got it.
And that's how it happened.
That's cool. I loved one thing that you told me, which, if somebody's interested out there to do the two card system, is that you told me this, that it's like you're cheating, right? Like it's so easy. I know, and you're the most humble guy in the world. So when you say that, I really believe you. It's not like you're just saying, "Oh, it's easy." But I get it. I mean, you make it sound, you don't have that many images. You know them very quickly, and there's something about that, just having 1,300 images and being able to drop them as you go, even though they're variable sizes. So
what if I remember correctly, I think what I said was it just, like when I used to use PAO and I just do one card, like a lot of people, one card per image. And I really felt like when I was doing, 38, 39 second decks, I really felt like I was moving faster and having to like think faster.
With the PAO, right?
With the PAO, right. And so it feels like, in my mind, it feels more impressive to do like a 36 with a PAO than like a 25 with the system that I use now.
Right.
Which I realize sounds weird, but that's just
cool
that's just kind of what my impression is.
Yeah. Nice. Well, so what's next, man? You're the best in the world.
Well,
you are. You are. That's what that title gives you.
Based on it,
Right. What's
I skated in.
What's happening in 2016? What are your plans now that you've gotten that?
So my life right now is basically just two things. It's being in med school and then also doing this memory stuff.
Right.
As it has been for basically the last year and a half. Definitely I was going to do this anyway, but winning the tournament obviously helps.
Sure.
I was trying to get more into kind of coaching and teaching, maybe doing some talks at different maybe other med schools, and so that's kind of where I'd like to go in terms of memory. I still want to do a little bit of training for the competitions, but I'm trying to get more. Just teaching, kind of speaking engagements, stuff like that, to try to just spread the techniques. And focusing on learning strategies.
Yeah.
So, obviously I love competing and stuff like that, but I want to try to, through these talks and coaching and stuff, kind of spread the use of memory palaces and mnemonics for learning and classes and things like that.
Okay.
And then for med school, it's kind of a nasty time because we basically at the end of, or in most med schools at the end of your second year, you take this big exam, like this big national exam, called the Step 1 exam, which is just like it's got all the stuff from the first 2 years, and it kind of decides which specialties are going to be available to you, and determines a lot of your
where you
appeal for different residency programs, how well how strong of a residency program you can get. So it's a pretty big deal. It's sort of like the ACT or the MCAT or whatever, the SAT, but actually even more of a big deal in terms of this this track.
Okay.
Those
are coming up.
So that's coming up in basically the summer. So it's basically right after the XMT.
Okay.
So thanks for that.
Sorry.
That's okay. But yeah, so that's kind of that's obviously like a huge kind of thing for me right now, is just studying for that. So I'm gonna try to get as much memory stuff in as I can while doing that.
Cool. I know a bunch of my viewers are students themselves. So you have a unique thing that you're a student still, but also a med student, which you have to learn a lot of stuff, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's a good thing to be a memory competitor and be in med school, I think. Yeah.
So
there's a lot of memorization and a lot of
If you have to give some tips for students who have to memorize a lot of stuff, maybe even specifically med students, what do you typically tell them? Do you always necessarily tell them to build memory palaces to store everything? Is that always the answer?
That's I don't always tell them they have to, but that's what I want to tell them.
Yeah.
I mean, that's basically what I do when I'm, for the most part, if it's something that's kind of new, I always just, have a memory palace and I'm putting images there as I'm learning it.
Okay.
Or not like right as I'm learning it. I usually try to get the concept down first and then try to put the details into a palace.
Yeah.
Just because I find that it's like, it's relatively easy for me to do now. Like it doesn't add a whole lot of extra time, and it makes a pretty big difference in terms of being able to recall it.
Okay.
A really important thing for me though also is a good review schedule.
Okay.
So I use a spaced repetition software called Anki.
Yeah. That's a great piece of software.
Right. So a lot of people try it and they don't like it very much, but that's what I use. And I really like it because it automatizes the reviews you have to do, so you don't have to think about it. You just wake up in the morning and this is what you have to review for that day. And supposedly it's supposed to be optimized for, it's the minimum amount of reviews you can do while still hopefully retaining the information. So I really like using that. So review is important. I definitely try to emphasize memory palaces and just visual mnemonics in general.
Yeah.
Even if it's just making images and just kind of having them float around in space, or just having them be in one place.
Right.
Yeah.
And with the memory palaces, you're learning a lot of stuff. So are you always creating new memory palaces for new information? Are you using old ones? Do you create new ones on the fly? How does it work?
Yeah, so that's a good question. I basically, the way I do it now is I create them as I go.
Okay.
Which was, for me at least, like a huge turning point to being able to use them. Because when I had been competing for maybe like not competing, but training for like 6 months maybe before I even started to use them.
Yeah.
And I tried it for like one class or a couple classes, and I was just like, oh, this is such a pain. Like, like I got to make new ones all the time, and I just didn't like it, and I don't know. And so I kind of stopped doing it for a while. And then basically what I sort of realized in med school, that was in college, is what I do now, which is just I pick a location sort of to start out. Okay. I just say, okay, I'm going to use my high school for, let's say, the gastrointestinal tract section that we're doing right now, and I just start somewhere, and then I just I just choose locations as I go. So it literally, the only kind of extra time in my mind is picking the location.
Yeah.
Because once I have it, I just start. Okay, I'm gonna just start in the intersection where the cars come in, and then I just pick. I don't go there. I don't do anything ahead of time. I just use what I already have,
what comes to mind as you do it. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And that was, so like I said, that was kind of a big turning point for me, because it made the whole process of using memory palaces very effortless.
Got it.
And I do think that they're a big help, just in terms of being an extra hook for your images, in terms of organizing the material and kind of keeping it in a nice sort of linear fashion and being able to group things together. Yeah. So
okay.
Yeah. So that's basically it.
That's
good. That makes sense.
Nice. What was I gonna say? Yeah. No.
Also.
Yeah.
Well, let me just mention one more thing. Also, one thing that kind of bothered me is I would always want to put like new stuff in if I wanted to learn it.
Okay.
Like for instance, if I made something and then I wanted to add something else into it later.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Like the way I usually make memory palaces for competitions is I'll go room by room and I'll say, okay, I'm going to have 5 in every room, or 10, and
Yeah.
And that was like ended up being very rigid. And so this way, I don't really organize it by room, and I don't know how many are in each room.
Yeah.
But I can sort of just add them wherever I want to, and it's not a problem. If that makes sense.
Yeah, that's super useful.
Yeah.
Because you may have one piece of information and then you keep memorizing, but then you realize you got to add some other fact or.
Yeah, it's just like it's too rigid to me.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's.
Okay, I like that.
And it makes me really glad to say that I can actually use this, because I really felt like I just failed so hard using it the first time and just like quit,
Yeah.
And then so it's nice to be able to use it.
Yeah, no, that's great to hear. I mean, I'm out of school, so I never really got the chance to use it. Unfortunately, I only learned memory techniques afterwards, but.
I wish I had known them a lot earlier than I did too.
Yeah, but I get that question a lot, is like, are these really effective for stuff like what you're studying, and you're showing that it is, which is really encouraging to hear. That's cool.
Yeah, I mean, what was I going to say? I just totally blanked.
Wah, wah, wah.
Yeah, I mean, it just like I said, it just kind of it was like a really bad feeling to be like, to think of myself as like a strong memory competitor, and then be like, okay, well, I'm not even able to do this.
Right.
So how am I going to convince? How am I going to convince anyone to do this? Like, no one's gonna. I mean, there's in my experience, there's definitely like this learning curve to getting comfortable with it, and to being able to use it effectively. But I think with the right kind of tricks, hopefully some of the things that I mentioned just then, it makes it more palatable for the everyday person.
Right. Cool. Well, thank you for taking some time to speak with me. I'm sure a lot of people were excited to hear some of your stories and techniques. If anybody wants to reach you or follow you, go. What do you want? It's your your website.
Okay, so I have a website. It's alexjmullen.com.
Yep.
We'll put up because alexmullen.com was taken. So it's alexjmullen.com. I have a blog on there. I have a contact page. So if you want to contact me, just go to that page. And then I have a Facebook page. I have a personal page, and then I have a page that says Alex Mullen World Memory Champion. And so that's kind of my memory Facebook page. So you can message me there too. I also have Twitter. It's Alex_J_Mullen. All those are good places to contact me or read stuff that I'm writing. So
Yeah, so if you're watching, definitely reach out to him if you need memory help. He's got the tips. He's the world champion. Thanks again, Alex.
Thanks.
Good luck with your test this year. And I'm looking forward to seeing you at the Extreme Memory Tournament, which is this summer. It's another memory competition.
Absolutely.
You came in 4th last year, so hopefully you'll win it this year. I'm feeling you might.
We'll see.
So. All right, well, take care. Thanks again for your time, man.